Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of the 2-Minute Warning. I'm Blake Showalter.
And I'm Beto Diaz.
And we have an absolutely loaded episode for you guys today. Don't we, Beto?
Couldn't be more loaded. So much crazy stuff happening in sports.
It's not just my opinion. It's Beto's too, which means you got to trust it. And we got to get into it. So let's start off.
Of course.
NFL Week 1. A dramatic Week 1, especially for me. I woke up this morning and I kind of just looked at the ceiling for about what could have been possibly 13 hours. I'm not even sure. Drug myself to work. It's been a mopey couple days, and I'm just absolutely devastated by the news. The offseason hype was ecstatic. Hard Knocks was amazing, and all of that to just end in a way that is what can only be described as Jets fashion. Aaron Rodgers out for the season with an Achilles tear. Yes, we won the game. Yes, Xavier Gibson's story just keeps on going with a sensational storyline that he has. But you know what? The main storyline is the one that hurts the most, and Aaron Rodgers is gone already.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There were a lot of good games that happened this week. The Lions beat the Chiefs. Ooh, really crazy game. The Bengals got slapped around by the Browns. The 49ers slapped around the Steelers. Really close games all throughout the week. A lot of really good stuff to see, but that really overshadowed it all. Having Rodgers back-to-back MVP, one of the league's most beloved players, just go down like that, and knowing that he won't be able to have his connection with Garrett Wilson, his connection with any of the other players on the Jets team anymore, other than, of course, seeing them every now and then in training. Him being in rehab is just so sad. And one of the most sad things is, we were talking about it earlier, him going up to Garrett Wilson during halftime, I believe it was, and just saying, "I'm so sorry, kid." Like, just breaks our hearts.
It's every year. It's every year. We can't catch a break. Sam Darnold, bust. Zach Wilson, all the fans hate him. Again, we talked about it earlier. I got to get my burner account back up because I got to start defending him again. I love you, Zach Wilson, but at the same time, it's like hell trying to defend you all the time. Sam Darnold, bust. The last time I've been to a playoff game was Mark Sanchez, and that, you know how that ends. So, you know what? This is just the life of a Jets fan, I guess. I've been a Jets fan since 2016. I'm from St. Louis. I became a fan when the Rams left, and it's just been absolute pain. It was pain when I was a Rams fan. It's pain now, and I thought we were going to get out of football poverty, but you know what? We're right back in it. And you know what? Maybe we have a good year, yes. But I hear it all over Twitter, and it's right. It's right. It's not that we're not going to have a good year, as that the Super Bowl dreams seem crushed. But you know what? My dad's very optimistic. He's right in what he says about this. The Rams lost their starting quarterback. They traded for a starting quarterback in 2000 when they won the Super Bowl, and Kurt Warner came out of the woodworks and let them do a Super Bowl. Maybe Zach Wilson can do the same. I don't know. I sure hope so, or else I don't know what I'm going to do. We have a side bet here that I got to bleach my hair blonde if we don't make the playoffs. I thought I was making that bet with Aaron Rodgers on the starting lineup, but I guess not. So there you go. Take it away, but I'm just infuriated.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance you could get even more infuriated next week in a great matchup. The Jets will play the Cowboys, and the Cowboys put up a ridiculous performance last week, 40-0 against another New York team, New York Giants. And so it's going to be really interesting to see if the Cowboys can do the double over the New York teams, or if the Jets can pull a win out. Obviously, we saw Garrett Wilson making big plays. Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall looked electric in the backfield. And so if that continues, I don't think it could maybe seem crazy, especially with considering this. Josh Allen threw 3 picks, one of the best passers in the NFL, against a interception machine next week against Dak Prescott. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can continue their great run of form at defense and their offense can get them over the line just like they did Monday Night Football.
You know, this is a much bigger game than it may seem. You know, I get it. It's week 2. Not a lot of big games can really, with a lot of magnitude, can happen in week 2, but this is one of them. You know, if Zach Wilson can step up and beat a very good team, the Dallas Cowboys, as we know, Dallas Cowboys, their motto is pretty much dominating the regular season and lose week 1 in the playoffs. But you know what? If Zach Wilson can go out there and have a game, show that he can be the guy. The locker room already has his back, but this is a game for the fan base to get behind Zach Wilson, because 50% of the fan base, it feels like, well, sometimes it feels like 100%, whatever social media app you go on, seems to hate Zach Wilson. So if he can just ball out, have a game, use his elite backfield, which I think is the best in the league right now. It's phenomenal to see Breece Hall come back the way he did. But if Zach Wilson can have a game and we can get a victory here, that will be huge for the implications for the rest of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, other than, of course, the Jets and the Cowboys in week 2, we have a lot of great lineups. The Vikings versus the Eagles is going to be a great game on Thursday Night Football.
We can't talk about the Jets all day?
I'm sorry, Blake.
No,
There's more than just the NFL than just the Jets.
All right,
There's the Chiefs, and the Chiefs play the Jags next week. And, of course, the Chiefs lost last week, looking not as sharp. Kadarius Toney dropping so many passes, and the rest of the receiving corps really not supporting Patrick Mahomes, and the absence of Travis Kelce was wild, so maybe he can tough through the bone bruise and play this week. But we did get Chris Jones back, and hopefully the defense will be a little sharper against a razor-sharp Jaguars defense who just made the Colts look like little kids out there playing against them. It was a man versus boys game last week, and so I'm excited to see that matchup. And just looking at it further, there's the Dolphins versus the Patriots. Patriots look revitalized both on offense and on defense. And the Dolphins just look absolutely insane. Tyreek Hill, an absolute freak. Him and Tua just combined for a crazy amount of yards. Something crazy going into this next game against a very, very, very sharp Patriots defense.
It won't last. Yeah, Tua and Tyreek had a great game. I think Tyreek's probably top 3, maybe even top 1 wide receivers in the league. But you know what? It's not going to last. Because if you double team Tyreek Hill every single time, yeah, you got Jalen Waddle. And maybe they can do great things as well, but I just don't see Tua holding up. If he can stay healthy, I've always had faith in Tua since his first year. We got a lot of hate for not performing as well as maybe he should have. But you know what? I like Tua, but I just don't think that form of offense that they're running where it's just Tyreek ball all day long, I just don't think it can last, in my opinion. And you know what? I hate both those teams, so I hope they both fail. I hope they tie, to be honest. I mean, the AFC East division rivals, I hate them both. I hate the Patriots a little bit more. But you know what? It will be interesting to see what that kind of matchup looks like. Because, the Chargers defense, yeah, I like Asante Samuel Jr. He's a great cornerback that the Chargers have. But aside from that, the Chargers don't really have an elite backfield. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do against a pretty good defense in the Patriots.
Yeah, they looked really sharp last week against the Eagles. Almost beat the Eagles coming
sir.
down. If it wasn't for the toe tap that didn't land, I think they would have marched down there and won the football game. But it's a lot of good matchups. Man, it's so good to have football back.
It's so good to have football back, but you know what? Unfortunately, we can't talk about football forever. Next up, we have to talk about an absolutely mind-boggling, I can't even come up with words to describe how shocked we were when we heard the news or when we saw the news. Sean Strickland, the new UFC champion in the UFC, beating Izzy. We did not see this coming at all. I love Sean as a fighter, so I'm not upset by it, but now the big conversation is who's next for him.
Yeah, if you look at the way Sean Strickland fought, it didn't even look close. Every judge scored the contest 4-1 in favor of Sean Strickland, and it looked exactly like that. In the first round, dropping Izzy, it's the first knockdown Izzy's conceded in his career.
Other than getting dropped by Alex. But.
Of course. Yeah. But that's just insane to think about. That Sean Strickland go in there against a super dominant champion and just put in work and just demolish him. And so it's crazy now. Who's next for Sean Strickland? And maybe even who's next for Izzy? I know Dana White immediately after said that Izzy deserves an immediate rematch, but Dana's a businessman. He's thinking more of the money and not more of the sport. If you look at it, Izzy did not deserve the rematch at all. If you look at his record, he's 1-2 in his last 3. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, it wasn't even a close fight. So now, who is the most logical candidate to face the new champion, Sean Strickland?
In my head, I think Hamzat logistically, but in my heart, I say Bo Nickel. I love Bo Nickel. I know he hasn't had a major contender as an opponent yet, but you know what? I love the way he fights. I know Dana doesn't like to put a fighter on a fast track right away. I mean, you look at Sean O'Malley, who's the current champion now. He kind of had a slow kind of progression into his more serious fights. But if you look at Bo Nickel and the way he's fighting, and I love what he said. He was on the Clash of Combat podcast. A guy named Caden Henschel who runs. You should definitely check that out. He had a phenomenal podcast there, and he says he was surprised by how bad the wrestling is in the middleweight division right now, and he thinks he could just walk through them. And you know what? After watching him at Penn State and the type of wrestler he is, I don't disagree. He's amazing. He's got hands now. Obviously he has hands now, and I think he's a serious problem if he gets in that championship octagon.
Yeah, I would love to see Bo Nickel in the octagon for a championship fight, but maybe not as soon as you think.
Maybe not yet.
I think the people that have been fighting in the top 5 definitely are more worthy of a title shot. Not because I don't love Bo. I love Bo Nickel.
Yeah.
But just because of activity alone. I think you have to give it to Dricus du Plessis. Just don't even have him and Adesanya fight. I know there's a lot of beef there, but you got to jump him straight to a title fight. That makes sense, and that'd be a great fight. They're both, him and Sean Strickland are both heavy pressure fighters who will go at each other 100% of the time. Great cardio from both guys. just constantly stepping forward. It would sell out. It would just logistically, it would sell out. And then if you look at Adesanya, there's only really, I think, one person he could fight. He's already fought Jared Cannonier in kind of a snooze fest, if I'm being honest. He's beaten Robert Whittaker twice, so you can't have him fight either of those guys. He has to fight, in my opinion, the winner of Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev, which is taking place in October. I think that'd be a perfect fight. And if any of those guys beat Izzy, we have the next contender for the title. I would love to see Khamzat Chimaev in the 85 division just go on an absolute tear. I'm not going to lie.
In my opinion, that fight's pointless. I think Paulo Costa is not a championship contender as a fighter. I don't think he is, especially what he did against Izzy. I just don't see him having that belt around his waist. And I think Khamzat, I think he just deserves to go right into a championship fight, in my opinion. I think he makes the most sense, in my opinion, and I would love to see it, but... yeah, I mean, we can't talk about the weekend all day long. I know you pulled me away from the Jets. I'm going to pull you away from title contention fights. We have to talk about this upcoming Saturday, which is tomorrow by the time you guys watch this, Kevin Holland. I love Kevin Holland. I'm stoked that he didn't take a fight in 2 weeks' notice, and he has a whole training camp to really work on his skill set and to get ready for a fight. And he's going up against a pretty tough matchup in JDM. What do you think about that?
Jack Della Maddalena is an amazing striker. Kevin Holland's an amazing striker. They're both dogs who will stand and bang. It doesn't even matter. Like, these guys are going to go at it and brawl. I love this matchup. I think, honestly, one of the better co-main events for any fight night ever.
I don't think it'll end a decision. I think this will not be a decision. I don't think so. I think someone's going to either get submitted or knocked out, and I can't wait to see it. I'm hoping Kevin Holland comes on top, because if he really dominates in this fight, this is a huge fight for him. I really think so. If he dominates in this fight, I think he's back in that title contention, and he better not take a fight on 2 weeks' notice to get there anymore. Yeah. He has to take a full camp, really show how good of a fighter he is, because what he's shown when he really takes time for a fight, or even when he, other than Khamzat, when he really takes any time for a fight, he shows to be a really capable fighter, and I think if he just fixes up a couple things, he might be in that championship conversation, to be honest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He's got one punch knockout power, great submission and grappling skills, jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's just a fun guy to watch.
He's entertaining. Yeah. And you know what? That's the fight style that Dana White really looks for in a champion. So I'm actually surprised that he hasn't been pushed more for higher competition fights, other than Khamzat, of course, which I've said a million times was 2 weeks' notice. All right, next up, we have to talk about a very dominant performance that Simo put on Lindenwood. We knew this was going to happen. We talked about it in the last episode. I didn't know it was going to be this dominant, though. Wow, because Lindenwood's not that bad of a team. They had a 9-win season last season. They also whooped the heck out of some no-name school the week prior, but wow, did we handle them.
Yeah, it was insane. I mean, first of all, let's talk about the defense.
Hit them with
Lindenwood didn't even look like they were on the same level as us. They didn't look like they belong on the same field whenever it came to their offense versus our defense. 3 interceptions from our boys, and basically like every other time Lindenwood was on the field, it was like 3 and outs or punts or just fumbled opportunities.
And they had the audacity to talk crap the entire game. It made no sense. I mean, shoot.
It was insane, but that was just on defense. On offense, ooh, just listen to these coming up.
Hit him with the stats, Beto.
Paxton DeLaurent, our quarterback, number 10 on the field, 267 passing yards and 3 touchdowns.
Whew.
Goodness gracious. Geno Hess, 20 carries, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns.
I ain't good at math, but that's a lot of numbers right there.
That is a lot of numbers.
Shoot.
Our receivers, Vic and Flournoy, both had 10 receptions. Vic had 101 yards for 2 touchdowns.
Impeccable.
And then Flournoy had 99 yards for 1 touchdown. They are just looking razor sharp on offense and on all facets of the football game. And it's just so cool to see coming into a very intense matchup, the war of the wheel versus SIU.
Bro, real quick, I just got to talk about Ryan Flournoy real quick, bro. That was the first time I was like, because we're doing videography, you're doing photography and stuff like that. I never been that close to Ryan before. Bro is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Bro is huge. I was like DK Metcalf on the field, bro. And he has one of my favorite quotes that our Isaiah Collins got from him. One of my favorite quotes of all time. He was asking them the difference between FCS schools and FBS schools. This is ahead of the Kansas State games. He just said, it don't matter, I'm him. He is him, bro. That was, what a game by him, bro. And now we have SIU, the war of the wheel, or whatever you want to call it. I'm excited to see that one. It's going to be a very, very good game. It's going to be a tough matchup. I think we can win it. We won last year. I think it's going to be just as good of a game last year, if not even better, in my opinion. I hope it's not. I hope we just run through them, but it's going to be a tough game.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we're hyping this up more and more. We got a new blackout kit. It looks insane. Obviously, we're talking a lot of smack between the two schools. I got buddies that go there. Shout out Reese Barrow. We're coming for you on Saturday. I'm loving the intensity of everything going on, and I could not look more forward to this matchup right here. Great on offense, great on defense versus an all-around great school in SIU. So it's going to be I don't think it'll be I think it'll be tense, but not like, too close. I think SEMO's going to take over in towards the fourth quarter, 2 scores. That's what I think. We're going to win by 2 scores.
I like the prediction. I'm actually going to stick with that prediction with you. I think a 2-score game. I think that sounds right. I also think it'd be a field goal to win the game with 3 seconds left too. I don't know, but based on the way we've been playing and the way that we've been looking, I would agree with you. I think a 2-score win. I think it's in the cards. But you know what? We've been talking only about SEMO football lately. I think it's time to dive deeper into all of college football. And to do that, we brought on a very special guest. His name is Nubyjas Wilborn. He's currently working for Newsweek, has a phenomenal college football background. He was also the Alabama 2022 Sports Writer of the Year. Nubyjas, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, man, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here. Good to see you guys. Hadn't seen you guys since Greensboro, man.
Yeah, NSMA. It was a good time down there. It was good meeting you and stuff like that. Just kicking things off, I wanted to know, obviously with the whole Deion situation and everything looking like that, do you think that's going to change the landscape of college football? And do you like what he's doing down there? And what are your opinions on that?
I'm conflicted on it a little bit, okay?
Gotcha.
And here's where we start. First of all, look, they're 2-0. Shedeur Sanders looks as good as any quarterback in the league. Travis Hunter, I mean, the guy, I think he's played like, 250 snaps or something in 2 games? Don't know if that's sustainable, but apparently Deion seems to believe that it is. We'll see how that goes along. Even if you're on the corners, that's still a lot of football, okay?
Absolutely.
Especially on the D1 college level. But apparently, those guys have come from FCS, HBCU, Jackson State, and at least through 2 games have made it look fairly easy.
Well,
that said,
what? As you know, we're from an FCS school, so I like that you bring that up because we were talking to one guy, his name is Ryan Flournoy, and I talked to him, or our guy Isaiah Collins, who works for us as well. He talked to him, and he asked him, what's the difference between FCS and FBS school? And he says, I know I'm him. It doesn't really matter. So I think we're seeing the similar thing with these guys that Deion's bringing along.
Well, absolutely, and that's one of the hardest parts about this whole situation, right? Listen, Shedeur Sanders was a Division I quarterback already. I mean, he was getting recruited by USF, UCF, places like that. There were schools looking at him, so he already was a guy. Now he's elevated. Obviously, Travis Hunter, the 5-star who Deion pried from his own alma mater, And so you look at some of the other talents, Dylan Edwards, the running back. I mean, you go on down the line. They have some talented players at the skill positions, okay? Now, again, going back to everything else, there are 80 new players on this team, right?
Yes, sir.
That's a lot of transfers in and out. And a lot of guys who, now, listen, Colorado was 1-11, and it's very easy to say, oh, well, that roster sucked anyway. And, I mean, they're not lying. The roster wasn't good. However, it's still a pretty bad situation to have that many young men without a college home, okay? Hopefully Colorado did right and did their best to try to help these young men, find a new place, a new home, you hope. But, some of those guys, they're still in the portal because that happens, right? So now you go from there. Will other schools try to replicate it? Maybe. But there's only one Deion. That man is one of one. He is a unique person with a unique skill set. I was talking to, over the weekend, I went to Bama, Texas, and then from there I went to the Falcons-Panthers game and ended up running to some old Deion teammates and some old, people who know him. And John Smoltz in particular said to me, very straightforward, anything Deion says he's going to do, I've never seen him not do it.
That's a very good point. And you know what? Talking about the transfer portal and talking about his roster, we're talking about it a little bit earlier. Do you think it's a possibility if Travis Hunter, I know you think it's possibly not sustainable, which I agree with you. That's a lot of reps he's getting. But if he is able to stay healthy, do you think he's a clear-cut Heisman contender, at least top 3?
I mean, you think about it, you could argue which player on the team is more Heisman worthy, right? Is it Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback who has, 900 yards through 2 games?
I agree.
That's insane.
Is it Hunter? Is it a running back? Is it one of the receivers? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, they got some talent, man. I mean, I covered Auburn before I moved over to Newsweek, where I'm at now, and they got a receiver, Tavares Dawson, who caught a touchdown in the Nebraska game. He was a top contributor at Auburn, struggles to get on the field at Colorado because they have so much depth at receiver.
Yeah.
So, I mean, credit to what Deion has done. He's brought in a lot of talent. Now, I don't think many other coaches can come in first year, pretty much eliminate everybody from the team except for the offensive and defensive linemen. Okay? Bring in all these other guys, and they all blend together, and they all play well. And look, we'll see what it is. Game day is going to be there, which is a big deal. And Fox is going to be with them for the third week in a row pregame show, even though the game is on ESPN. So there's going to be a lot of network talent in Boulder, man. I mean, they're really making Boulder into Hollywood. You saw the Wu-Tang Clan was there.
Yeah.
You saw the, Michael Irvin. You got Hall of Famers. You got NBA players. I mean, people are out and about to see this thing with Deion. And you think about it. I mean, you guys are what, mid-20s, early 20s?
Something like that.
No, but seriously, I'm saying, think about it like this. Colorado last won a national championship in 1991. Okay?
Yeah.
Were either one of you born?
No,
Nope.
Not even close.
Mm-mm.
Right. You know what I'm saying? You want a twinkle in your dad's eye, as kids, as the old people used to say. Right? When they last won a national championship. Cordell Stewart was a long time ago. Okay? I mean, Eric Bieniemy played there.
That's crazy to think.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right. You know what I'm saying? He was a star there when they were rolling. Colorado used to be a good program. And you guys live in Missouri, and the fact that it's just not even your mind's eye of them being relevant. I mean, they have not been a relevant program, I'd say really in 25 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. To be a truly relevant program that you actually care about, that you actually look forward to. I've watched more Colorado football in these 2 weeks than I probably have in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And that including working as a journalist covering college football because they just have not been relevant. So, to get ESPN Game Day hadn't been there since the 90s. Okay.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm just curious because I look at their schedule too. Really tough schedule. Got USC coming up. Has Oregon coming up, and Oregon looks absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What do you think their season looks at? I mean, I know we don't like to doubt on Deion because whatever he says, as you said earlier, he usually comes through on. But what do you think their season's going to look like? Or at the end of the year, what are we going to be saying about Colorado football? Are we going to be saying playoff team? Are we going to be saying, well, obviously, I think bowl eligible is going to be probably in the conversation. But what do you think?
I'm not ready to go playoffs yet. I mean,
All right.
listen,
Me neither.
they play Colorado State this week. They should beat them, right? You would assume.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
We'll see what they're about when they play Oregon and USC in back-to-back weeks, right? And I think that will be the telltale as I pull up the Colorado football schedule. It's odd enough comes up a lot quicker now than it used to. And by the way, shout out to the Pac-12 with 8 teams ranked this week, right?
That's unbelievable, especially with all the movement going on with all these teams going to different conferences. You haven't really heard a lot about the Pac-12, and it is pretty surprising, in my opinion, to see them have this many ranked teams.
Yeah, I mean, you got 8 teams ranked starting with USC, which again gets into the schedule, right? So they'll go to Oregon, which is always a tough place, Autzen Stadium, all right? Then they host USC, which should be a pretty big game. Then you go to Arizona State. Stanford comes in. Stanford hadn't really shown a whole lot. But then you go to UCLA, and UCLA is ranked 24th right now. And they've looked good. Then after that, you play the 16th ranked Oregon State Beavers. Then you come back, you play Arizona. Then you play Washington State, which is ranked. And you end your season with your rival, Utah.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. And they look good.
And so we're nowhere near the hay being in the barn for their season. I mean, it's hard to predict wins and losses in college football, but I mean, they should be 3-0 going into these next 2 games. And then I think after the USC game, I think we could then come back and have a better idea as to what we think these guys are going to be.
I definitely agree. And real quick, I want you to step in a little bit. I feel like
Of
I've been
course.
hogging you the entire time. So Go ahead.
I love talking about Colorado just as much as the next guy. It's lovely to see a smaller school just go up and up and up in everyone's eyes, from national media attention to wins. But another school that is always in the public eye, and especially when it comes to college football, probably the most talked about college football team is Alabama. And they seem to be taking a step backwards from everything that was talked about. What is going on with Alabama now? Is it Nick Saban's fault? Is it the personnel's fault? Who is to blame here for the disaster that's happening right now at Alabama?
Well, I mean, they're the number 10 team in the country. They've been ranked in the top 10 for the last 128 weeks, which is the second longest streak to Miami back from 1987 to, I think, even though I'm saying it was a good, I think Miami was like 150 weeks ranked in the top 10. They're still in the top 10. Now, again, they lost a tough game against Texas, and give Texas credit. They came in there and beat those guys up. Quinn Ewers looked like a guy who's worth all the money he got in NIL.
He's a dog.
I'm sure Ohio State may not agree with that, but
that's true. And I don't want you to be biased either. I don't want you to be biased because that Auburn background you got. Don't be too biased on me. But what you know what I mean? Shoot.
Well, look, hey, I just covered Auburn. But seriously, I think people are too quick to just throw them in the grave. Okay. Now, is Jalen Milroe the right quarterback? No. And they lost this game early enough to where, hey, they can still win the rest of their games. They can still get hot. I definitely feel bad for USF this week. I would imagine they aren't going to have a whole lot of fun having to play Bama after all that. So, can Bama get hot? Yeah, I mean, but listen, they don't have the same offensive line that they're used to. Clearly that showed, particularly against Texas. They don't have the same defensive line they used to. Now, does that mean they can't get it? I mean, they still are recruiting at a top 3, top 2 class every year. There's still talent there. But, hey, he's lost a lot of assistant coaches over the years. He's had a lot of changeover over the years. This is what happens when you win. I mean, you look at the NFL with Belichick, right? Look at all the coaches that have left there over time. It happens. I mean, you talk about Steve Sarkisian. Well, he was a Saban assistant. Kirby Smart is up at Georgia doing his thing. Jimbo Fisher might want to go back, consider what's going on at Texas A&M, but you get the drift here.
Yeah, then to get to our next topic, we're an FCS school, SEMO fans here, and the landscape of college football is a lot different for us than it is for someone like you who covered FBS or Auburn for a very long time. I mean, shoot, we went up to Kansas State last week and we got our butts whooped. It was 45-0. I was there to cover that one. It wasn't pretty, but talking about the transfer portal and stuff like that, what is your view on FCS schools as far as talent level goes? Is it just a lot of diamonds in the rough, or how do you think that translates?
Well, it's going to be interesting for the FCS schools, right? Because on one side, there's the opportunity for FCS schools to recruit high school players that they wouldn't normally have access to. Now, can get difficult depending on your budget, depending on what you can also do in NIL. I think some schools that are maybe FCS or even group of 5, like let's say a Cincinnati that's in a major city, for instance, right? I think they have a unique way to position themselves, even though they're FBS, but they're group of 5, right?
Yeah.
Then you have some SCS schools that are in unique situations, that are in towns that may have a little bit more, may have more prominent alumni to get the NIL going. But on the flip side, you can recruit high school players that you wouldn't have gotten because all the schools are raiding the transfer portal. You also can take advantage of the transfer portal. Maybe you get an NAIA kid. Maybe you get a D3 kid. Maybe you get a D2 kid. But on the other tough part of it is you're going to lose players. If you get one of these high school kids, like let's say you get a kid who's a 3-star who normally, like a perfect example would be for you guys, SEMO, right? Like let's say there's a 3-star kid from St. Louis who would typically go to Mizzou, okay?
Yep.
Mizzou might not recruit that kid as heavy because they may rather get a kid from the transfer portal, all right? Therefore, that gives you a chance to get the kid, keep him relatively close to the home and all that good stuff, keep him in his state. That gives you a chance at him. The problem is you get him developed, Mizzou might come take him anyway.
Absolutely. And just to touch on that a little bit, it's not necessarily football But especially with basketball this year, for SEMO, it was our first year going to March Madness in something like 25 years, or I think it was 23 to be exact. And sure enough, we lost about all of our best players because they get on that national stage, coaches start to see them a little bit more, and then they take the next best opportunity they possibly can. And we got the chance to talk to our athletic director one day, Brady Barkey, who's got promoted recently. But he doesn't really like the transfer portal, obviously, because of that reasoning. But I don't know, you can't really blame players. It just kind of sucks being at a school like SEMO. I mean, I love our teams. I love our athletics and all that stuff. But just watching guys come and go and almost like a resting spot or a proving ground spot to go to somewhere better, it's kind of hard to grow a program, I think. And I don't know. That's why I'm not a huge fan of the transfer portal, but I also have that bias being from SEMO, of course.
Well, I mean, but again, that's the thing about the portal, right? It gives and it takes away.
Yeah.
If you are in Auburn, for instance, or in Alabama, you can go in the portal and change your life. Look at Colorado. Look at what they did, right?
Yeah.
And some of those kids came from FCS programs or Group of Five or whatever have you. That happens, right? On the other side, it does hurt the smaller schools where it essentially makes the smaller schools even more of a minor league for the big schools.
Yeah.
And what's the remedy for that? I don't know the answer. Because money gonna rule everything. I think Wu-Tang said it best. Cash rules everything around me. And it ain't changed.
No, I mean, just to finish things off here, I appreciate your input, and also thank you so much for coming on the show. Just lastly, what is your outlook on this college football season? What is your biggest, maybe sleeper picks for teams to look out for, players to look out for, and stuff like that? What do you got for us?
Well, I mean, let's see. There's a lot of things going on. One, obviously, Georgia's still Georgia. I definitely think they're going to be in the playoffs. I don't think that's like a major thing there considering their schedule. I'm pretty sure they'll be fine. Now, a team that I'm interested in is Notre Dame. I like the way they played so far. I think they have a good quarterback in that Hartman. I was going to call him a kid, but I think he's pretty much a grown. He's damn near a grown-ass man at this point, so I don't know if calling him a kid is appropriate. But the elder quarterback there is pretty good. They have some nice receivers, interesting schedule. I think they have a chance to make some noise, and I would not be surprised if Notre Dame makes it into the playoffs this year.
Also, what do you think about Duke? They kind of surprised me this year. What do you think about
they've been fun to watch. Hey, shout out to them. I mean, and here's another thing, too. The ACC has 4 ranked teams, and Clemson is not one of them.
It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Because Clemson's not ranked, even though they beat Charleston Southern, but they went to Duke, and also credit to Duke for following this, for not having any hangover after the Clemson win and pounding their next opponent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you have a competitive ACC with a good Duke team, an interesting Miami team. Are they finally back? Do they have the right guy in Van Dyke? With those receivers, new offensive coordinator, is Florida State again? I mean, to come to think of it, it's been a long time since Jameis Winston was there.
Good point.
You know what I'm saying? It's been a long time since they, had Deion way back in the day, but then, all those guys, Brooks and all those legends that built that program, it's been a while. They've been down. And I think this is the first time, like 5 or 6 years, Miami and Florida State were ranked in the same poll, which that used to be normal. It used to be shocking that both weren't ranked in the same poll. So credit to both those programs for getting back. Shout out to Duke. And then, hey, by the way, North Carolina's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
And so, the ACC is an interesting conference. I think we're seeing more spread out because, I mean, you look at the SEC, obviously LSU losing that game to Florida State, Alabama losing to Texas, Ole Miss barely hung on against Tulane, and Tulane was missing their quarterback, even though the game was at Tulane. So, I mean, there's some questions. Hey, is the portal spreading the talent out a little bit more?
Yeah, I definitely
Are
agree with
kids
that.
getting more talented? Are there more talent? You know what I'm saying? Like, is the portal NIL switching it up a little bit?
I agree with you there about the portal. That's just one of the benefits I see. It's just it sucks for a smaller school like us with the transfer portal. But I want to say thank you so much. Be sure to go follow him on Twitter, Nubyjas Wilborn. He's posting stuff regularly. Also, read his articles on Newsweek. He's putting out some killer stuff as well. A lot more opinion pieces. I'm liking that as well, Nubyjas. Thank you so much for coming on the show. See you next time, hopefully, right?
Hey, man, thank you, boys. Anytime, man. Love y'all.
Well, that's all we have for today. I'm Blake Showalter.
And I'm Beto Vacadillas.
And real quick, we just want to say thank you one time because, well, more than one time. Let's say it multiple times, Beto. But you know what? We just got word last week that we are up for a National Pinnacle Award for our show. Really feels good, and the viewership really helps, keeps us motivated to do better. So we got to thank you guys for that. I know like a lot of you guys are our family, so thank you, family. If you're not part of our family, you're kind of part of our family. You're our 2-Minute Warning family.
2-Minute Warning family.
There you go. But to grow this family, go follow us at the 2-Minute Warning on Instagram. Also, follow On Target Sports at On Target Arrow on Instagram or on all social medias, and keep updated with our show. You know, maybe you're watching this horizontally, correct? Yeah. All right. Put it up that way. Put your phone that way. I want you to scroll down a little bit and press that little subscribe button right there. That's what you.
It's completely free. Doesn't take anything from your lives. Just adds in some 2-Minute Warning.
If you want to add donations, though, we broke it. We broke. So go ahead. I mean, I'll put my Patreon or whatever you get that with anyway. But anyway, that's enough from us. Thank you so much again, and we'll catch you guys next time. What you know, Jeffrey? What do you know? Yeah!